What's up, everyone? This is Sean from Room 9, introducing episode 11. We are plugging away, folks, with a blog, a website. I mean, we are doing it up here at Room 9. And I have to especially thank my main man, Matthew, for helping me out so much, especially with social media stuff and SEO stuff and all that. So, Matt, you are the man when you listen to this. Thank you for all your help. Room 9 officially has some sponsors here. So before we get into this, I'm going to talk about them for a second. We are brought to you by, first one is New Buffalo Designs, which is run by a wonderful woman, Christina Ferrasi, who is a music teacher. But in her spare time, she does these wood-burning carvings, a lot of buffalo things, but really anything you want. I'm sure she would do custom-made ones if you just get in touch with her at Facebook or Instagram, which is just at New Buffalo Designs. She made the one, if you're on our website and you look at this wood carving that says Room 9 on it, the Ross Astoria. If you look on our website, she did that one for me for Christmas. My sister asked her to do it, so it's pretty beautiful. Pretty beautiful work she does there. We are also brought to you by Indie Threads, which is run by a man that I was in Horizon Village with, named by the name of James Leary. Clothing for the Free Spirit, as his Instagram page says. He, in the fall of 2019, he will have men's knitted sweaters, he will have cardigans. Right now, I believe he has unisex t-shirts out. If you are a follower of our Instagram page, Room 9 Instagram page, a lot of our pictures come from pictures he took, which is pretty awesome of him. He sends those to us quite frequently. He also will be giving a portion of his proceeds to help fight the opiate crisis, and I believe he connected with Save the Michaels on that one. I'm almost positive. I should probably know this before I do my intros, but I'm almost 100% on that one, that he connected with Save the Michaels on that. And last but not least, Room 9 is brought to you by the one and only Upper Story Studios, which is run by my very good friend David Riffle. I mean, he provides the essential thing for this podcast, which is a lot of equipment he allows me to borrow for no cost. And that is quite a blessing, because otherwise you guys wouldn't be hearing any of this message that we're trying to send out. But he does photography, videography, he records music, you name it, this dude does it. He is the multi-talented individual. And he is also a teacher at Buffalo Academy for Visual and Performing Arts, which was my school that I graduated from. But you can find him at Upper Story Studios on Facebook, on Instagram, and upperstorystudios.com is his website. I believe on his website you can actually just click on and schedule to set up a time to do anything with him. For the most part, like I said, photography, videography, music recording. Again, you name it, he can do it. And he is an extremely talented individual. And again, you can find Room 9 pretty much anywhere now. On YouTube, Room 9, on Twitter, on Instagram, on Facebook, on what else we on? Tumblr now. We got a Tumblr account, possibly Snapchat coming up, but that's all Room 9 Podcasts. You search that, you will find us. We are also available on iTunes. We are available on Google Play, Stitcher, Spotify, almost all your major platforms. If you happen to find one we're not on, please send us a message, and that would be great. The website is pretty much well darn done. room9podcast.com, and please hop on there and get an email sign up and get our newsletters, get our weekly blogs every Monday. We're trying to stay consistent for you guys to come out with a podcast on Monday, a new episode, and a new blog. And I would love your input. I'd love your feedback. If you sign up, we can send you an email and alert you when all these things are posted and up and running. And now to get to the episode 11 here, I sit down with a friend, Dave Fasano, who is actually, I believe he is only 21 now. We discuss it in the episode, but it was always amazing to me to see the younger kids in their early 20s who were in rehabs and in recovery before they're even legally able to drink in the United States of America. And I was always impressed by how some of them have the strength and courage to stick with it at such a young age, when all people their age are pretty much, just beginning to party and do their thing. So I have the utmost respect for this man. I worked for his father, who I also have the utmost respect for. He was an amazing dude. I actually stole from his father and got fired when I was in the midst of my addiction, and it was just the way he handled it was so beautiful. And he actually, when he fired me, he was very encouraging, saying, I know you're a better person than this. I know you can do better. Get your stuff together. And I always was thankful for the way he went about doing that. And we discuss, this is one of the few episodes where I really get into really AA and 12-step recovery. I'm not fully into that myself, so it's always good to get more information and connected with people who are more in depth with it. He talks a lot about his higher power at the end of the episode, which I think is very important for a lot of people in recovery. We just need to find something other than ourselves to look on and lean on and look for guidance. I think that's super important. So hope you enjoy this episode. Again, I love each and every one of you guys. You guys are awesome for your encouragement, for your support. It's continuous on Facebook. I get messages all the time. I get emails. I get texts. I mean, the list goes on of just encouraging things that I get from everyone. So again, thank you so much for your support. Hope you enjoy this podcast. And room9podcast.com. Go on there. Hit us up. Later. All right, David. Welcome to Room 9.
Good to be here.
I'm glad you are here, sir.
Yeah, good to be here.
I'm trying to think. We started at your father's business.
Yeah.
Good old Pafco.
Yeah.
Shout out to Pafco. Flooring. Or no, what's it called? Pafco.
Pafco Products.
Just Pafco Products. That's right.
Yeah.
So yeah, your dad hired me. And I kind of met you there.
Yeah.
You were there, I think, just part-time, right?
But yeah, I was working there. Well, it was like full-time. I was working there full-time, and then my own alcoholism and ego and stuff got in the way of me doing a good job there.
So yeah, let's start from the beginning with your story here.
Yeah.
Because you're definitely a younger one.
21, yeah, 21 years old.
In the AA, and you don't see a lot of, I think, being 33 and kind of looking back at like my early 20s and late teens with my drinking and stuff, there's no way somebody would have got me to ever go to a rehab or group. So I always, give you and people that are younger that stick with it and stick it out like a lot of props, because that's almost missing. I always looked at those were my party years, man. I wouldn't want to give those up. And for sobriety, what the fuck? Who's going to do that? So I always give, younger people a lot more credit and they can stick it out. Because I feel like if you look at the percentages, people that age,
40s and 50s mostly,
probably like relapse a lot more. Their percentage of relapse is probably a lot higher. I mean, it's high to begin with, no matter how old you are. But
right.
I think when you're in that younger stage, because I'm assuming, like, how is it for you going out? Now you're 21, so you're now technically legally able to drink.
Yeah.
But not going out and like being around and seeing other people go out. Does that ever kind of like hit you?
I remember 3 weeks before I turned 21, I was freaking out. Is it cool to swear?
Oh, absolutely.
Oh, okay. I was fucking freaking out because I'm like, I'm not gonna have a fucking sober illegal drink. I'm not gonna have a fucking legal drink. Like I was pissed, and I'm talking to my sponsor, and I'm talking to people in AA, and the day comes, and I'm like, what the fuck? Like, what's the big deal? I was fucking drinking when I was 16, 17 years old. Like, it's really nothing different except the drinks cost more because you have to go to a bar.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it was I've never my hat is off to people who can drink successfully. I'm happy that people have the capability to have 2 or 3 or even 4 and say, okay, well, I'm a little tipsy, I'm done. Or the people who drink, and there's a lot of people out there that
once, twice a month.
Yeah.
If that. Yeah.
Like my grandfather has before he passed, he would have a glass of wine every day. But 1 glass of wine. Like 1 or 2 glasses of wine. That was it.
Not 1 or 2 bottles.
Yeah, right? Oh my God.
Yeah, so that's always something I've looked at. Like, yeah, that's like that position there. I will never have a legal drink.
Yeah.
I mean, hopefully you never will have
a
legal drink.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the whole point, I guess, of the AA thing. That you never will. But it's got to be something sometimes. It's like, yeah, what the hell? I always think about that. But so what age were you kind of when you started going through all of this shenanigans?
I started smoking pot when I was 14. 14, like 15. And the way that I was I was good during the school year. I'd get passing grades. I wouldn't really cause much trouble. But as soon as summer hit, it was all over. I mean, I'd be staying out late. I'd be, getting into fights with my parents, like just stupid shit, stuff like that. And, you know, and I would always tell them like, oh, it's not a big deal. Like, it's really not. And then I think I was like 16, 17. Yeah, I was like 16, 17 when I got like the courage to start stealing booze from my parents. And that's where it all really started, was that I would drink. I was a weekend warrior for a while throughout my high school career. Like, that's how, I would wait till the weekend and I'd be good, or I'd smoke pot. Like, I would smoke pot like every day or every other day. But the booze is really what got me in trouble the most. And my dad was terrified. I remember the one night. Do you remember before they changed the Four Loko recipe?
Mm-mm.
They changed the Four Loko recipe because it was killing people. Because they were putting like
That's right. They had to stop selling it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
They ended up stop selling it, and then they came back with it and changed the recipes, so there wasn't because there was, I don't know if it was amphetamines, but it was like doing coke and drinking at the same time.
Oh, so it was one of those that had the caffeine or taurine, whatever, yeah, in it. Okay.
So I remember the one night I drank like four of them, two or three of them, and I walk home and I walk in and my dad is just like, you're like, I couldn't stand straight. I couldn't, like, I was like leaning to the right, and he's like, oh my God, you're drunk. And
I'm not drunk.
I'm like, yeah, I was like, I don't know, just like try to get out of it. He just knew. So like he gets me downstairs and he puts me on the couch, and I fall asleep, and what I didn't realize was he thought I was gonna die.
Really?
Yeah, he thought I was dead. He thought I had drank too much, and he was checking on me throughout the night, making sure that I was still breathing.
Damn.
Like, and that didn't really hit me till sobriety, because I was like, oh, okay, like I'm sorry, like, I'm not a puker. I'm not, like, I could drink a lot and not puke. So that wasn't really, it didn't hit me, but that's just how I was, you know what I mean? I did what I want when I wanted to. And, like I was saying earlier, like, when I got my first car, like, I always had a DD. I was lucky. I was extremely, extremely lucky that I had a DD.
Yeah, that's most drunks are not smart like that. Like, they don't give a shit.
I didn't give a shit.
As far as driving, they'd be like, fuck it, I'm going to drive.
Well,
which I think is...
Well, I was always like that. Like, I'm like, even when I was hammered, like, I would always be like, I'm good, dude. Like, I'm good. But my friends wouldn't let me drive.
Which is, that's good friends. That's good people to have around.
Yeah.
As for your dad's an awesome dude. And I'll get this story out of the way real quick, at least as far as my involvement and how I actually met you, which wasn't through AA. It was through your dad's company, which I started working there. And when I started working there, my issue, I think, right at that point was, I mean, I would do pill. It wasn't even that bad at that point. I would do some pills here and there. I was selling them mainly. Every once in a while, I would take a couple. It wasn't a daily thing until I ended up hurting my back there.
Oh, okay.
And I remember hurting my back there, and in order to keep working, because I wasn't going to not work, I was popping them like crazy. So, I'd be there all the time. And eventually it just became like, oh man, this is great. I don't feel like I'm wasting my life away at this job. I feel like I'm doing something. I feel better about myself. And I essentially, ended up stealing from your father's company. And eventually he was like, all right, dude, it was enough. But to say how awesome of a person, the way your dad handled that, I think was amazing. That's one thing why I want to call and talk to him about. And just kind of thank him, because I remember he said something to me, and I was thinking about it today, because I was thinking about sitting here with you and talking. And he said something to me like, "I know you're a better person than this."
Right.
Like, I remember him saying that. Like, I've known you, I've had conversations with you. I know you're a better person than this. So I really want you to go get help. And I know he was genuinely concerned for me. Like, he cared about me. He wanted me to get better and do good things. And that's why I think I mainly owe him a phone call. even more so than just an apology, because so he knows, like, and I can tell him, thank you for how he handled stuff. And he's an awesome dude. I mean, that's for sure. I definitely have, grew to like him and always kind of felt that, man, that sucks that I like fucked him over the way I did.
Yeah.
And I'm hoping like he'll be able to, forgive me for that one day. If he hasn't already, I would put money on that he probably has.
Yeah. We had a conversation, because I didn't really know the whole situation between you two.
Yeah.
I didn't know that he called her family.
Yeah.
I didn't know any of that. So I was like, but he's always been kind of understanding about this kind of stuff. Like he thought I was doing heroin.
Really?
Yeah. But heroin was never my thing. It was more coke and Molly and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And, I would come in looking disheveled because I was just coming down.
Yeah.
So, he finally had enough when, I turned 18, 19. It was like the summer of like it was 2015. He finally had enough. And this is just alcoholism. Like, I didn't understand why he was kicking me out of his house. After the 3 or 4 years of just shit that I put him and his wife through. Like, I caused a lot of chaos in that house.
We like to do that as
Yeah.
addicts.
Yeah.
We love causing chaos.
So it was just, I remember it was like the last straw. I took a bottle of booze from him, and I would park my car down the street so he wouldn't see me. And he comes up to the car and he's like, "Get the fuck out of the car. Give me the house key." And he handed me a suitcase with some clothes and stuff in it. And I'm like freaking out. I'm like, it's like 7 in the morning. It's like 7 or 8 in the morning. And I'm like screaming in the middle of the street. I'm like, I'm gonna go to your fucking house. I'm like, I'm gonna fuck your house up. And he's like, "You do that, I'm gonna call the cops." I didn't, because I was like, I really am not about to get arrested. Like, I'm not catching a charge over stupid
Have you
shit.
been arrested?
Yes. My dad called the cops on me because I stole. My dad keeps a fucking huge jar of change in his room. And after like a month of me stealing $10 at a time, $20 at a time, he would lock the door. And it wasn't me that smashed the door open. It was one of my friends.
Okay.
Because I was downstairs drinking, and all of a sudden I hear a boom, like, and I'm like, "What the fuck is that?" And I'm so drunk I don't even realize. I'm like, "Oh, you got the door open, okay." I'm like, "Oh well, it'll be fine."
That's good. Yeah.
Like the whole, like the
the frame.
The frame.
Yeah.
The frame was broken off, and I like push it back so the nails go back in a little bit, and it was still all fucked up. And we go out and we get drunk and we buy some pot, and he finds us at the park because the park was right down the street. And I try to walk away, and he's like, "I'm gonna call the cops." So I was like, "Okay." Like, I don't fucking like dealing with the cops. Like, I fucking hate
Nobody
that.
does.
You know? So like, I'm like, "Okay, he's not gonna call the cops." I'm like, "Okay." So I go home and I'm sitting on them, playing on watching videos on the computer or whatever. Two Cheektowaga police officers come downstairs. And I'm like, "Oh shit." He's like, "Did you steal the money?" I'm like, "Yeah." I'm like, because I have just an attitude. And he's like, "Okay, put your hands behind your back." I'm like, "Okay." I'm like, "I don't give a fuck." He's like, "I don't give a fuck that you don't give a fuck." And I was in my socks. I was so pissed because I was like, my parents have a one story house, and then we got the basement, and I was like living in the basement at the time. And I took my shoes off upstairs, and he's walking me up, and I go to turn right to grab my shoes, to put my shoes on, and he's like, "No, don't put your fucking shoes on." And he walks me outside without shoes.
They're assholes. They won't let you put clothes on. They won't let you put shoes on.
So he walks me to the police car, and I just had to make a scene. I just had to make a scene. I'm not like resisting arrest or anything like that, but he's searching me, and
You're gonna be annoying about it.
Yeah. He's searching me. He's like, "You got any weapons?" I'm like, "Yeah, I got a knife up my ass." And I'm like, I'm screaming in the middle of the street, like, police brutality. Like, I'm just, I'm like yelling like police brutality and stuff like that. And he gets me in the car, and I got charged with criminal mischief and destruction of property. but it got sealed, and it was just an ACD.
Okay, yeah.
So,
How old were you at the time?
15.
15. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Not really, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
So 15 years old, and that kind of now being sober and looking back at what my family members had to do and go through, and I'm sure you feel the same way. Like, it is insane, like how hard it was for them to have to do those. Like, my
Right.
girlfriend called the cops on me, and I've been with her. It was just 5 years now, and this like a week ago. 5 years I've been with her, and that year of like my addiction was really, we had so many great years together. And I remember like talking to her, and I did a podcast with her that I haven't put up yet, but talking with her, and just like she was telling me how she had the phone in her hands to call the cops. She bawling her eyes out, couldn't do it. Came like 15 minutes later, something, this voice just told her, do it or else she's going to end up dead. And I think she finally did it.
Mm-hmm.
But how difficult that is. I mean, doing that to your son, but knowing like, I don't know how, I got to get through to him somehow. And that's got to be one of the most, difficult things you can possibly do.
What I didn't understand until actually really recently is, for a very long time I saw my parents as parents. Like, they're my parents. They're supposed to do everything for me. They're supposed to take care of me. They're supposed to do this and that. And what I just realized like 2 or 3 months ago is like, they're people too.
Yes, they are.
Like, they're people too. They have lives, they have careers. They got to keep maintaining their relationship and their marriage, and their take trips. And like, I remember spring break, they went away and they left me alone at the house. And I don't know why. Like, I don't really understand why they did that now. Like, with everything that happened, I never really understood why. But I mean, I would have parties, and I had parties like every night. And
Man.
but it was tricky. I had to figure out a way, because my dad's got this alarm system. He gets a text every time the door opens.
Really? Okay.
Yeah. Every time if a window opens or a door opens in the house, he gets a text message. And I had to figure out a way to, like, I would have to, I'd leave in the morning, and then I'd come home, and I'd have to lock the door and keep everyone inside. Because I'm like, if you open that fucking door, he's going to freak out. He's going to call me. He's going to
Yeah, when the door's open 15 times in a half hour.
Yeah.
Like, something's up. Okay.
Yeah. So, but.
So how did you get around it? You just let everybody in one swoop and
then
closed it?
Yeah.
And told nobody else that could leave?
But what I didn't realize was, like, I don't know if you've ever been to a party where they try to get the homeowner as drunk as humanly possible, so he'll pass out, and then you can do whatever you want.
Oh, boy.
They got me as drunk as humanly possible, and I pass out 20 minutes after, and I wake up, everything's fine. Nothing's destroyed, everything's fine. But like, my dad comes home the following week, and he's like, oh yeah, windows were open, like there was a Ying's box next to me, like there was just food everywhere. And it wasn't really that big of a deal, but it was more like, I know you had people over.
Yeah.
Yeah. And this is nothing against him. Like, I've never, like, since sobriety, I've never blamed my parents for my actions. I never got in trouble. I would get talked to, and he'd be like, well, you shouldn't do that. You shouldn't do that again.
But there's never actual consequences.
No, and that's just, when I was making amends to my mom. Yeah, when I was making amends to my mom, one of the biggest things she said was, I just wish I could have done things differently. I wish I could have raised you differently. And I'm like, Mom, there's nothing you could have done. There's absolutely nothing you could have done. Because this stuff stems, like, I'm one of those people that believes that this is genetic. That, like, I was born an alcoholic. Because even before I picked up a first drink, I was an asshole. Like, I was beat the shit out of my mom when I was like 8 or 9 years old. Pulling her hair, like, stuff like that. So, like, that's just where it all comes from. Like, it's just my ego, my own selfishness, thinking that I can do things myself, thinking that whatever I do, I can get away with. And I'm just very happy that I don't have a criminal record. That's nice. That's one of the biggest things that I'm happy about, is I don't have a criminal record. But at the end, I remember I was up till like 7 a.m. and I was like sneaking into my mom's house and sleeping there. And I would wait. Oh no, I would wait till because my mom would like a long time ago. She would leave her door open, like she'd leave her house unlocked. So I'd like sit down the street, wait till she leaves, and then go in and sleep. And I remember the one time I was coming home and I stop at a green light. The light turns green and I stop. I'm sitting there and there's a cop across like past the intersection and I'm like this. I'm like waving him on. I'm like waving him on like the lights
like
red.
it's a stop sign.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so the guy he busts a Yui and he pulls me over and he's like, "Oh, that light was green." I'm like, "Oh, okay." He's like, "Just don't do that again." It was in that moment that I was like, "Please arrest me."
Really? Yeah.
I was like, "Please, like, fucking have me step out of the car, check my pupils," because I was doing a lot of Molly, so my pupils would dilate. And I was like, "Please, just fucking just arrest me. Like, I don't just want this fucking shit to be over with. I just want this to be over with. I'm so done." But he didn't. I mean, I've had a lot of experiences like that where, not where I wanted to be arrested, but like my distant uncle, I never met this guy a day in my life, but he has the same last name as me, is a Depew police officer. And I've gotten pulled over once for going 75 miles in a turning lane. And the guy pulls me over and he's like, "You know how fast you were going?" I'm like, yeah, because I was fucked.
Yeah. You're like, yeah, of course I did.
I was like, okay, whatever's going to happen. I don't know how big the fine is going to be, but he's like, "Step out of the vehicle." I'm like, "Oh, great. Now I'm going to be arrested." He has me go to the back of the car and he's like, you know your uncle? You know what your uncle's name is?" I'm like, "Steve?" He's like, "Yeah." He's like, "Just, we'll let you go this time." And it happened again, and I was drinking and driving. But I just started drinking, so I was drinking and driving, and I was going 10 over, and the guy pulls me over, and he's like, "You got anything in the vehicle?" And I had a case of beer literally in the front seat, like on the ground. And they always make a crime scene out of everything. So there was another cop that pulled up, and he shines a light right in the passenger side window, and there's the beer. I'm like, "No, there's nothing in the vehicle." He's like, "All right, everybody step out of the vehicle," because I was with all my friends. And he's like, "All right, just dump the beer out and you can go." I'm like, "Okay."
All right, sweet.
I'm just lucky I had just started drinking.
Oh my god. Yeah, that's kind of nice to have a chief of police
Yeah.
in the family.
Yeah.
Get you, I guess. But like you said, there is always sometimes that voice of you don't want to be arrested, but you also know, like you said, you're just done. You're fed up. You're tired, and you can't stop, and you almost need something like that.
Yeah.
I mean, that was my big wake up call. Was laying in jail for 6 weeks, and just being alone for half of a day. 12 hours in lock-in, and just sitting there alone in my head. I mean, it forced me to make some serious changes, and psychologically. Either I knew I had to make serious changes, or else I would be under a bridge somewhere and eventually probably overdose and die. But you have that voice where you're like, "Please arrest me. Please arrest me. Please let this happen right now." And then you get off and you're like, "That was awesome. I didn't get arrested.
Yeah.
But I need to get arrested." It's like that constant battle of, I always tell people, like, addiction it literally is almost like this other entity that is inside of you that like convinces you and calls to you and tells you, to do the most effed up possible shit you could possibly think of. And it literally is. And I don't say that as like, oh, we have an excuse, but I always kind of use the analogy of like, the villain in Spider-Venom. And
Yeah.
it's like a symbiotic relationship where it's like it needs you and you need it in order for it to survive.
Right.
And so it's always just like this voice, because even since being out of rehab and some of my challenges that I've come, whether it's going to my parents' house and my dad has a couple beers up in the fridge, and there's that voice that comes in like, you can have a couple beers, you'll be fine, just have a couple beers, and you got to catch it, you got to be so aware of it, because that's where it starts. And I always said, I think I just did a podcast earlier. I was telling Megan, maybe I could have a couple beers. And maybe the next 10 times I could have just a couple beers. But eventually I know there's going to be a road where I have too many beers. And then
too many times.
And too many times, and my awareness is down. And I'm justifying everything. And now I can justify going and getting some dope.
Yeah.
Or whatever it is. Maybe you'll just start with pills. And maybe I can have a couple fucking hydrocodones right now. That's cool. You know, I've been good. I've behaved. I can control this now. And it's just addiction is this other like thing that convinces you all the time. It's like waiting, tapping you on the shoulder, waiting for you to come back to it. It's just always there. And it's such a heavy weight to carry around, man. But let's head to your like changing, like when that point where you were like, this has got to stop, and you actually were like putting action. What kind of caused you to start shifting?
I remember after I got kicked out of my dad's house, I was living in my car for like 3 weeks.
And you were 18 at the time?
19,
Okay.
I think I was, yeah. I think I was 19, yeah. So, I was content living in my car. It was like September. It was starting to get cold, but I was still like, I'm like, okay, I'm good. I'm like, I'm just gonna live in my car. I'm good. But my mom was like, okay, there's this like homeless shelter type of place for like, it was for kids between like 16 and 21.
Okay.
And it was this house in Lancaster where they would take kids in, and it was free to eat, free to live. Like, you know, it was kind of just like, just a place to live until you got back on your feet. And I stopped doing the drugs, but I kept drinking. And they would catch me. They would tell me, don't do that again. They caught me again. Like after like the third time, they're like, okay, well, we can either figure something out, which meant we're going to kick you out. And my relationship with my family was not good.
Mm-hmm.
I was destroyed. Like there was no chance of me crawling back to my dad and saying, hey, can I come live there?
Yeah, I assumed if you had to do that and you couldn't live with your dad or your mom, things were probably on rough waters.
So they're like, okay, well, we can send you to rehab. I'm like, okay, cool. I'm like, all right. You know, and the whole, like, I was there for 4 months on the dot, and 2 months into it, and for the first 2 months, I was like, okay, I'm going to get out and I'm just going to start smoking pot again. Because I'm like, everything else is the issue. Pot's not the issue, though. And about 2 months in, I'm seeing like, I'm in this rehab with dope fiends who are like 18. I'm seeing kids like, you know, the Renaissance campus.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that's where I went to rehab.
Okay.
So I was seeing kids who were like 14, 15 shooting heroin and smoking crack and shit like that. And I take a look and I take a look at myself and I'm like, I could end up on the news. It's just another statistic.
Mm-hmm.
Like I could be somebody who gets into kill someone in a car accident, and I'll spend the rest of my life in prison. Like I'm not about to do that. So that's where my thinking changed. And, I got a sponsor and I started doing these things. And after I got out of rehab, I rode that pink cloud for a while. Because I thought I was good. I thought going to meetings and everything was just fine. But there's more to it than that. But then I ended up relapsing. It was, I was doing mushrooms and shit. And I was like, I'm just going to get a spiritual experience as I sit in my bed.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if I'm trying to do that, like, I should have been out in the forest. Like, at least try to justify it in a good way. And I kept quiet about that for almost 2 years. I have 2 years, but almost a year and a half. I kept quiet about it until I couldn't take it anymore. And I told my sponsor, I'm like, hey, I relapsed like a year ago. And
so you were just kind of playing the game still as you were drinking. Were you still doing AA and all that?
I wasn't drinking. It was like a 1 or 2 time thing.
Okay.
There's like, how there's certain sleeping medication that if you take enough of it and you stay awake, it'll fuck you up.
Mm-hmm.
Like I took a bunch of that, and then after that I was like, what the fuck? Like I'm done. Yeah, I mean it was just like I had to 100% realize that like I was done. Because I was in NA for the first year of my sobriety.
For a little bit, okay.
Yeah.
What caused that switch? Just, I guess you just said you didn't identify with the people?
No, because there are cliques. in NA. And the groups that I went to, there was like one good group that I could say that was like totally like step work and God reliance and all that stuff. And but I mean, I just went to the meetings, and I was telling you this earlier, like I don't want to hear your war story.
Yeah.
I'm trying to get well. I'm not trying to get worse.
I'm not trying to remember.
Right.
As far as, these times of partying. And you do find that a lot. And I think a lot of cases, these self-help groups where you get a lot of people that are just sitting around talking about
their feelings,
the times that they had, certain experiences and situations when they were using, as opposed to, I don't think necessarily talking about your feelings is bad.
No, it's just more like,
but how you talk about them,
right?
I think is what is the important thing. Is I'm feeling this, so what do I need to do to not feel this?
Right.
Or I'm not feeling this, what do I need to do to feel this? As opposed to, I'm feeling this when I was blah, 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 partying up with Joe and Frank, doing this and just re-experiencing the time when you were using. And that gets old. I can definitely see.
So, but it was one of my biggest issues, and it works for a lot of people, and it works for millions of people.
Mm-hmm.
But I can't get a sponsor who says you're not going to start working the steps till you're 1 year sober.
Yeah, which I think is stupid.
I'm like, dude, I'm insane right now. You want me to go back out? And that's just
so you actually had somebody say that?
No, well, yeah. I mean, that's what I was talking to somebody who like I was really, really cool with, and I was like, "Yo, can you be my sponsor?" Because I'm like, I just had a good feeling about this guy. I'm like, this guy he can take me through the steps. It's like, oh man, I'm sorry, I'm not a year sober yet. I haven't been through the steps. I'm like, dude, you're 9 months sober.
And he didn't do any steps. That's crazy.
He would talk to his sponsor about the traditions and the steps, but not go through them. Which made me switch over to AA and realize realize I'm an alcoholic.
Okay.
Because I drank just as much as I did drugs. I mean, my like use ended in drugs, but it all began with drinking.
Mm-hmm.
Because I was drunk when I tried cocaine.
Yep.
Like my friend, not my friend.
No, never mind. I take that back.
No, he was not my friend. He's like, yo, you want to do some coke? Because he was a heroin addict.
Okay.
And he shot coke, and he knew I had money, so he used me for a long time.
So he knew, what he was doing from the beginning. Yeah.
So that's when I started doing coke, and all that shit happened. Yeah, man, it's such a fucking roller coaster.
It is.
And like when I get disconnected from AA and from my higher power, I remember this literally happened like 3 weeks ago. I tested positive for THC in my Oxford house.
Really?
Yeah, it was a false positive. But I had been disconnected from God and AA for like 2 months. I was still going to meetings. I just wasn't there.
Yeah, you're just physically there. Yeah.
So they're like, we don't know what we're gonna do. We're gonna try to get it sent out to a lab, like all this stuff. And I stayed up the whole night, and I was like, this is the stuff that defines my sobriety, because I was ready. I'm like, if I get kicked out of this house, I'm drinking.
Mm-hmm.
There's no doubt in my mind. I was like, I was going to drink. But like that 10-second interval where I was like, I should call my sponsor. From I want to drink to I want to call my sponsor. So I picked up the phone and I called my sponsor, and he's like, just don't worry about it. Take it day by day. See what happens. Like, and just, if you get kicked out, you can come live with me. And I'm like, okay. And I just took it day by day and kept working and kept doing what I needed to do. And, I had to take another drug test, and I tested negative for everything, and it all worked out.
Yeah, that's got to be a scary situation, knowing you didn't do something in that test coming up. But I think what you said, and I don't want to just blow over it because I think it was huge when you said like that 10-second interval.
Yeah.
That 10 seconds. Sometimes it's not even that long where you have this moment. And I think this is the whole point of like training your brain of when through rehab and onwards, just continuously training your brain for when that interval comes up, when you have this urge, I want to do this, I want to do it, I want to use, I want to drink, whatever it may be, you have that split second of, but I should call this person. I should talk to this person. And the training your brain to act on it and do it right away, I think is so important. And one of the biggest keys, if not the biggest, to staying clean and staying sober.
Yeah.
I think that's huge. And definitely kudos to you on that one, man, because, I mean, that's a big deal. And I can definitely see how there was another dude who had 2 tests. He popped hot for, I think it was fentanyl.
Here?
Not in this house. No, it was a different house where Patrick is, a Loxley house.
Oh, okay.
And he ended up going to the hospital and getting like a blood test done because he didn't. But just having that, like, and who's going to believe you?
Yeah, we're a bunch of drug addicts.
Yeah, we're all drug addicts. No, I didn't use, man. I swear to God. Oh, okay. All right. He didn't use, guys. We're good. He's fine.
Yeah.
Like that ever works. So that's got to be so nerve-wracking.
Yeah.
My biggest thing with the Oxford House is, like, obviously you don't want people around doing drugs. We're all trying to be clean. We're all trying to do that. But we also want to help each other. We also want to, help each other sober. And sometimes I feel like, is it always like a necessary thing? And I know that's rule and it probably will never change, but to boot somebody out right away. Like somebody who's been around, who just slipped up once. Like, I feel like somebody should be able to come to the house and be like, hey, man, I slipped up, I did this, and I don't want to go back and do that. I need, I want your guys' support and help. And I don't think you can do that here.
Well, I remember I've been in Margaret I've been in the Oxford House like system, I guess you could call it, because I was at Willow Lawn for a year, and I think I'm at just about a year, maybe, yeah, about a year and a half now. I've been at Margaret, and during my time there was this guy who had I think he had almost 2 years, and he slipped up, and he did heroin, and they're like, okay, like,
Did he come forth and say it, or did
Yeah.
he get tested? He came forth and said it?
Well, it was sketchy. He tried taking the drug test and, like,
Okay.
doing some sketchy stuff, so they knew what was going on. But, so he admitted it, and then they're like, okay, well, we have to kick you out, but if you go to rehab for 30 days, you can come back.
Okay. Yeah, I
So,
have
like,
heard that now.
So it's, like, stuff like that, where, like, if you, like, these guys that you're getting in, these new guys that are coming in, let's say they're here for 2 or 3 months and they get high. Like, it's one of those situations where, like, I don't know you all that well.
Yeah.
Like, you got high, so you need to go. Like, for somebody that's been there for a year or a year and a half or 2 years.
That has some time in.
And who just honestly was like, I had a couple drinks. Or I did some pills. Like, I think that there should be not just get the fuck out.
There should be some kind of, and I do
there
like that.
is.
We'll hold your bed. We'll let you.
Yeah,
you come back.
But it's all case by case. It's all person by person, and how what you're doing and how you are in AA and NA or wherever you go to get help. So, like, it's more based on your track record than, like, just like we're gonna kick you out.
Get out.
Yeah, I mean, I understand why they do that.
Yeah, well, you want to protect everybody else,
right,
in the house. I mean, one person could literally bring down an entire house.
Like,
if things were to be let go.
Is it the South Park house? It's not. It's not an Oxford House anymore, I don't think. But there was a house on South Park Avenue.
Okay, yeah, I don't know about this. What happened?
Like, rehabs are sending guys there, and like the whole house is getting high.
Really?
Like, or like half the house, or like
it's
the whole
a trap house now.
Yeah, and
I don't know why I'm laughing at that.
Rehabs are like still, referring them to that house.
Really?
Yeah,
that's crazy.
But that's just one of those things. Like, it's just a fucking trap house. It's not. It's just. But
like a great example of how one person could bring down a whole house, or even like a rehab, is Horizon Village. Towards the end of my stay there, they moved, because it used to be half 50 or 25 guys, 25 girls, and they finished a whole building just for girls. So they were separating them, right? And what happened is So now you have 25 open beds all of a sudden. And as I was leaving, they were slowly bringing people out, but I got out, and obviously I knew a lot of people that were still in there. And they just flooded it. They flooded it with dudes. And it took one or two people, man, and people that I was close to, that I wanted to do well, that I wanted them to do good, that seemed like they were all about it. They were 100%. Because when I was in there, dude, I didn't even hear anything. I'm sure there was some use going on. There always is. But nobody was trying to, give it to anybody. Nobody was trying to sell it to anybody. I mean, I would have heard. I mean, I've talked to everybody. I knew what was going on.
Right.
And I would have heard. So there was nobody out there, like, really trying to fuck with anybody's recovery. But then that happened. They got flooded with dudes, and people were getting kicked out left and right that I knew for using. And I'm like, it just takes one. And obviously, again, we all have our own responsibility. I mean, we can say no, but to have somebody come in and just, I'm going to use, and almost, and again, you're not forcing it on somebody, but you're doing it somebody who's in a weak state at this moment, I think is just it's so messed up. And it brought a lot of people down, man. A lot of people. It just takes one person to do that.
I remember I had this delusion when I got into rehab that everyone that I met in rehab for my first day was going to stay sober. Like they were all like, oh yeah, me and everybody are going to come back, the alumni picnic, like we're all just going to see each other and everything's going to be great. And it was insane. Like at one point we had 5 people kicked out in a week. Like there was one every day. Like it was 1 or 2 every day. Like, and I mean, like at the Renaissance campus, they just built a female house, or they just built a halfway house.
Did they?
They took one of that, like they're changing a bunch of stuff around, and then they're building a detox center. Because did you know that if you're not 18 years old, you can't go into detox?
No, I did not. Why is that? I didn't know that.
I don't know why, but if you're not 18 years old,
look that up.
If you're not 18 years old in New York State, you can't go into detox.
Huh, that's weird.
Yeah.
I wonder why that is.
I think it might be liability issues.
I wonder if it's because if you
because alcohol
coming off of benzos
you.
And alcohol, could definitely kill you.
So
actually, that happened to my buddy's aunt.
Oh,
his aunt went cold turkey off of drinking, and her liver just shut down on her, and she died. I mean, I always say that about my father. Like, I tell my mom, like, if he ever tried to stop, like, he cannot just stop. Like, he's got to go into something where he can get off of it safely.
Right.
Not that he'll ever stop, but.
Oh, yeah. But it was like, I remember talking to the admissions counselor, and he told me all this stuff. And he's like, I tell parents, like, go to the hospital and have them give you nausea medication, because it'll help with the puking and the throwing up and the stuff. But that's all they can do for you. They can't detox you or anything.
That's crazy.
Yeah. But they're building an adolescent detox center on the grounds. So.
Yeah, that's nuts. I never even knew that. I want to make sure I look that up.
Yeah.
So what step are you on now?
I'm doing my 9th step.
You're on your 9th step?
Yeah.
Which one's that?
Making amends.
The making amends.
Yeah,
okay.
making amends, yeah.
How's that been going for you?
I haven't done it in like 3 months.
That's a tough one, man. That's
like
gotta be,
I was right off the jump. I didn't have a lot to make. I mean, I had my mom and my dad and my stepmom, and then what else? I had a few other ones, and I did those, and then there was like my stepmom. Like I reached out and I asked my stepmom if we could sit down and have a conversation. She's like, "Well, I'm really uncomfortable with that." So like the whole thing with that is like I did my side.
Mm-hmm.
I asked you if you wanted to sit down, and you said no. So okay, well I'll revisit it in a couple months or a few months, and like one of the toughest ones that I have to do that I haven't done is I have to make amends. I got a girl pregnant.
Okay.
And I kind of forced her to get an abortion. So like I have to make an amends to that.
That would be a tough one. Yeah.
So like it's like a bunch of stuff that I'm not even like it's in that not willing category.
Dude, it's hard to. It's one of those things that is so difficult to do, but when you get it done, it's like this huge weight off of your shoulders.
Right.
So it's like this enemy you got to face,
and
you got to do the battle. and you got to go into it and you got to come out, obviously, just from saying it. Because there's a couple of like people in my family that, I've wanted to talk with and discuss some things, and they said they're not ready. And obviously, you have to totally respect that. You have to let that be. And the ball is pretty much on their court. Well, I'm here to talk whenever you're ready. I mean, one of them, my good buddy Corey, who I've known since like 5th grade, has been really hurt. I think both of my two good friends, I think, were more hurt. I mean, I owe Corey some money, like probably like $800 or something, from him letting me borrow things and stuff like that. But most of my friends were really hurt that I couldn't come and tell them that I had an issue. Like, dude, we're boys, and like, why didn't you come and talk to me that you were struggling and all that? So I think most of them were really hurt by that. But there are those people who aren't gonna want to do it. They're not ready for it. They don't know how to even take it. They don't know how to handle it. A lot of people want to protect themselves, as if they, are they going to go back? Are they just saying this? Do I believe what they say? So, I mean, it takes nothing but time. And there's so many people. I realized, like, I was texting my uncle who lives in Portland, and he, like, I did nothing, like, to him. He wasn't here around. He just kind of heard about my addiction. But when I wanted to talk, just have a conversation with him, it wasn't even necessarily to apologize for anything. He was just like, I'm not ready to talk, or, emotionally, I'm going through some things, and I know this will be a heavy phone call, and I don't want to do it right now. And you just have to totally respect that. But it made me realize how, like, the ripple effect of how many people it affects, and they're not even here specifically involved in it, and how many people it can hurt and, affect their lives. So that's...
I was just very... a lot more people in my family knew about my drinking and drug use than I wanted.
Really? Yeah.
Like, I was furious when I found out family knew. Like, I know my mom and my dad knew, and then my stepmom and her stepdaughter, or her daughter, I mean, like, they know, and I'm like, okay. But I was, I had a really big resentment against my dad for one of the things was, like, he would go to the bar and he would tell his friends. I'm like, dude, like, your kid is none of, like, their business. Like, and I have to accept that, like, that he's a person and that he has friends he can talk to about his own life and stuff like that. But I was just like, at least don't tell me about it. Like, if people know,
you can
like,
do it, just don't tell me.
Yeah, like, and I was just so mad because I'm like, I was a scumbag, right?
Mm-hmm.
I was a scumbag when I was doing all this stuff.
We all were.
But people tend to think that you still are.
After, yeah.
Like, I remember I heard a story about one of these really solid guys in AA. He has 21 years of sobriety now. And he was talking about how for the first 10 years of his sobriety, every time he would go over to his mother's house and she would leave the room, she would take her purse with her for 10 years. Until finally she was like, okay, I think I can trust him after 10 years of sobriety, like continuous sobriety.
Yeah.
It is stuff like that I'm just like, okay, like, but I don't want people to walk on eggshells around me.
Yeah.
Like, if you have questions, like, if people have questions, like, I'm an open book. Like, I have no issue talking about my drinking and my drug use and the things that, I had to do to get what I wanted. I remember, the final straw that before I got into that homeless place was I tried robbing my drug dealer. I got into a car chase. He was chasing me around, and it was one of those things where he grabbed the window. He held on, and he eventually fell off the car. And, like, he chased me for, like, an hour. So, like, I eventually pulled into a police station and filed a false police report.
That he was, like, trying to...
It was road rage. I said it was road rage. I'm like, I cut this guy off. He's like, he broke my mirror. He did all this stuff. I just said that to get them away. Like,
yeah.
And then a detective calls me, like, a few days afterwards. And he's like, oh, how about you come in? I'm like, no. I'm like, do your fucking job. I told this guy on the phone, I'm like...
Oh, that is awesome, man. Do your fucking job.
I'm like, find these fucking people. Do your fucking job. And I was so surprised when he got mad at me.
Oh my gosh. What did he say?
Oh, he's like, well, I am. I'm doing my job. You just have to come in. I'm like, okay, like, whatever, because I don't really remember that conversation, but he was just pissed.
Oh my gosh, that is
awesome.
awesome.
He was just really pissed.
That is great. I love being able to laugh at these stories. Obviously, what in its essence, it is not funny at all.
Yeah.
And we've done fucked up things. But I mean, I love being able to look back. Like even with Christine sometimes, like the other day, I was over at the house and she had to run something over to her one of her kids. I think it was a sweater or something. And jokingly she's like, all right, I'll be right back. Don't steal anything. Shit like that. To be able to laugh about it. And like I talk shit about her calling the cops on me and all that.
Yeah.
Obviously at the time it was something extremely serious. But I feel like it's good to be laughed at. But kind of going back to like your dad and talking to people, and you've said it, like it's important. They have lives and they need friends to talk to.
Yeah.
And I think it's huge. I think it's necessary to stay sober. Like you said, to be an open book, to be able to talk about, the effed up things I did. And I think one of the keys to being able to do that is to find self-love, self-forgiveness, self-acceptance, and start having that confidence, which is one of my biggest things that I never had up until I was laying in jail, staring at the ceiling, realizing if I don't learn how to love myself and forgive myself and accept myself and have confidence in myself, I'm never going to get out of this hole.
Yeah.
I'm going to continuously be stuck in it. And I think that's super important for everybody, even if you're not an addict, just to have in your life. I mean, whatever it is you're doing that keeps you from doing that, from numbing something. I think it's so important to, get to that mindset.
Yeah. No, it's just like building relationships. Like I have a girlfriend and like, it's been tough. It's like very tough because I don't even know what the meaning of love is. Like I don't know what that is.
Nobody does.
Like I don't know what, like for me, like I don't know what that is. Like I made a sex ideal and like I try to follow it and I'm like I don't even know how do you treat somebody? Like I've just dated girls and like they give me things and that's it. And I'm like, oh cool, I got this. Like great. Now get the fuck away from me.
It was weird, man. I never, like, I was married.
One sec.
Yeah, I was married, and I had obviously 2 kids with this woman, and I was with her for probably dating and being married, probably a total like 7 or 8 years. And I remember waking up, and this was really the root of my divorce, and I was like, "This isn't how this isn't love. This isn't what this is supposed to be. Like, I shouldn't be happy when she's gone. I shouldn't be pissed off and annoyed when she's around.
Yeah.
I shouldn't have my with my friends me and then me with her. I should be able to share everything with her, including my faults. Like this isn't what it's supposed to be. And when I kind of gave up on it is when I found it. When I was like, this is done. I don't even think it exists. I'm just gonna focus on me. And I think once you get like comfortable, I've shared with people all the time, when you're comfortable to be alone the rest of your life, I feel like that's when you'll find a relationship that is healthy and what it's supposed to be. And I always said like a relationship, really not even just an intimate one with a significant other, just any friendship, any relationship should be 2 people that can come together, share their faults, share their fuck ups with each other, love each other, not judge each other, and help each other work on those things. I think that's what any relationship should be.
Right.
And I mean, and it's tough to find. I think it really is tough to find because we're such selfish individuals.
Especially in this generation.
That's a fact.
I hate my generation.
We're kind of wrapping things up here, David.
Okay.
We're almost at an hour. What I want to keep it kind of like your last thoughts on AA and the step work. And what's kind of one of the main piece, if you could, tell anybody, this is how I usually like to end it. What advice would you give them?
I mean, it's just you gotta give it away. That's number one. And you just It doesn't matter what it is. It doesn't matter what it is. You just got to get a higher power. Because, like, I know that if I didn't have a higher power in my life, I'd be fucked. I'd be so fucked. Because, like, anything that's bigger than me, like, I'm not going to get into this because this is a whole, but I have a mainstream God, I guess you could call it.
Mm-hmm.
I believe in a mainstream God, as you could call him. But for anybody in AA, like, it doesn't matter. If you believe that doorknob right there is your higher power, and your first day of sobriety or first month of sobriety, that is fine. The whole thing, though, is you gotta build it. You gotta build that relationship, and you gotta make it bigger every single day. And I struggle with that all the time. I'm like not immune. I'm not perfect. I never will be perfect. But I just, because people like, I've seen people do the steps and then go back out. And why is that? Because, like we were talking about earlier, they either forget where they came from, they don't work with another alcoholic or drug addict, and they stop building that relationship with God, with their higher power. Like, that's so important. And that's probably, like, I mean, our entire book is based on God in one form or another.
Mm-hmm.
In whatever. Like, we talk about it all the time in AA, in meetings. Like, it doesn't matter what you believe in. So, like, if you believe that, like, the Force is your higher power, then go ahead. Like,
Yoda.
yeah. You know, like that
Yeah.
like that philosophy, like, that's, like, it doesn't matter. Like, if you believe in Buddhism, Christianity, Catholicism, Islam, like, or just make your own God.
Like you said, the doorknob.
The doorknob. Like, and I think what people struggle with is praying to a God or a higher power that is actually them, like, is actually myself. Like, if I pray to God and I'm, like, asking for selfish things, I might get those things. God might grant me those things, but he'll take them away just as quick as he gives them to me. He's like, you want that fancy car? You want that hot girlfriend? I'll give them to you. But what happens with me? Well, the girl's not hot enough.
The car's
not fancy enough. You gave me a 2018 Beamer. Oh, well, I want a Lamborghini. Like, and that, I'm just always want more. I want that bigger house. I want that bigger car. I want $20 million in my bank account. Like, I just want things. And that's where, like, I have to become humble and realize that wherever God's going to take me is where he wants me to be. And I might not like everything in my path. And I won't like everything in my path, you know. So it's more about just following the path that your higher power sets out for you. Because there's a certain amount of footwork that you have to put in. It's not just, hey, here, God, take this. And then just sit back.
And then you're good. Yeah.
And then, you know, there's a certain amount of footwork that you have to put in. And, you know, there's a lot of groups in AA that are not doing AA correctly. I'm not going to name any names. I mean, but like my home group, you've been to my home group.
Mm-hmm.
And
shout out to Depth and Weight.
Yeah. So it's not entirely about the meeting itself. It's about the people in the meeting that are the ones doing what they need to do. And
the community, the fellowship.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's huge, man. I don't think you can give much better advice than that.
Yeah.
With the higher power and just totally surrendering to it.
Yeah.
And those things when God gives you something and with the times when God takes away, to be completely aware and learn from those situations. Because for me, accepting a shitty situation and opening my eyes to what I can learn is where I have my most growth.
Yeah.
Hands down. So, all right, brother. I love you, man. This was awesome.
Too. Yeah, good to be here.
This is great, and we should and probably will have a future episode again.
Awesome.
So, cool. Yeah. Room 9. Peace out, everyone.
Peace out.